Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta on this beautiful, crisp, cloudy morning. We return together again to create a beloved community, acting together with compassion, reason, and respect, empowering us to promote a just society. And first, we acknowledge that here in the CSRA, we reside on the lands of the Westo people, the Savannah Shawnees, and the Yuki peoples of the Muskogee Confederacy. My name is Janeya Filzen. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm happy to be co-creating this worship service with Jezibell Anat, music director Joseph Patchen, guest speakers Jan Parsons and Ruth McClelland-Nugent, and all of you. I want to welcome our visitors today. Please find a blue card in the seat pocket in front of you or around you and fill that out. It'll allow us to keep in contact with you and for you to find out more about what we're doing here in our community. We also hope that you'll stay after the service for coffee hour so we can say hi, and we will know you by the orange name tags you're wearing. Also, during coffee hour, our youth have been exploring finding our center together as a community, and they will present what finding their center meant to them throughout this month with various artistic expressions and word. So we hope that you'll enjoy that during coffee hour. And then soon after that, at 12:15, there will also be a discussion back here in the sanctuary about the service topics that we bring up during worship today. So there's a lot going on. And whether you're here for the first time or the 1,000th, I sincerely hope you get what you need out of worship today. Now, before we continue into that, we have a lot of upcoming events. Our final Friday jazz performance featuring Karen Gordon and friends was a huge success. Thanks to everyone. Yes. Thanks to everyone who made it happen, especially our volunteers led by Pam Hayward. Our next concert will be March 31st with bass legend Ed Fuqua, and I really hope you guys can make it. Been to both of them now, and they're just really, really fantastic concerts. So it's been a long time since we've taken a picture of the whole congregation. Today was going to be a possibility, however, it seems the rain is still forecast for basically during this service and right after. So just to be safe, we are going to postpone that until next Sunday. So please come if you want to be part of that picture of the full congregation together right after services next Sunday. And a generous thank you to Ed McCraney, who has offered to take that picture for us. Don't want to miss that. Next Sunday, also February 5th, choir rehearsals will resume again here in the sanctuary at 9:15. Please come and join us as we re-begin our journey to deliver beautiful, meaningful, and collaborative music to the congregation. And in addition to those two things happening next week, there will also be a UU 101 discussion in Rev Nick's office beginning at about 12:30. If you're new and interested in membership, or if you're already a member and just want to know a little bit more about what makes UUs, please join Reverend Nick and Dee Medley for that. And there is more happening next Sunday, February 5th. Alan George, Marsha West, and Lynn Dennison are generously offering to provide Realm coaching the first Sunday of each month after service. If you have any questions or need help navigating the central online organizing tool for UUCA, feel free to check in with them after we take our congregational photo and while you enjoy some coffee. Also happening, coming up, next Wednesday is the first Wednesday of the month, and that means it's time for ecstatic dance. So please join us here in the sanctuary at 7 o'clock for a powerful and fun spiritual practice. And if that's the first Wednesday, then you guys know the first Thursday is Soul Circles. So if games and snacks and camaraderie are more your speed than dancing, you can come out on the first Thursday at 6:30 for some snacks and games and fellowship. Yet another event coming up, February 15th at Sacred Heart Chapel. Our partners at the Progressive Religious Coalition are hosting their annual celebration of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with an amazing guest speaker, Dr. Eddie Glaude, with the AU choirs and a scene performed by the Augusta Youth Players. Performing arts will help to make the event even more powerful. So we hope to see you there as well. And now, please take a deep breath. Come into this moment. Listen to the sounds around you. Enter your body, enter this time where we hover gently between winter and spring.
We light this chalice to represent the spark of life that activates our physical bodies, the energy that moves us, the passion that inspires us. Our opening hymn this morning is familiar to many of you. We are dancing Sarah's Circle. And we are not only singing, we are dancing. So I invite all of you who would like to participate in a very easy, slow, meditative circle dance to come up and join me, and feel free to join in later if you are so moved. Emma Goldman is attributed to saying, if I can't dance, I don't want your revolution, and it still seems, given that there have been mass shootings at dance halls, that dance is a revolutionary act. So what I will invite you to do now is, it is your choice to hold hands or not. If you don't want to hold hands, do this. If you want to hold hands, hang on. We are moving to our left. We are simply taking 4 slow steps, just feet on the ground, walk, 2, 3, 4. We'll come into the center slowly, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, and just gently swaying. We are swaying in this circle in our community. There's a sense of our feet on the earth. We are swaying in the wind and the rain. So the lyrics will be up on a screen, so even if you're dancing, you can probably see them. So Joe will get this started, and if anyone wants to jump in, feel free.
We are Good morning, everyone. I am Margaret Tark, and I am a member of the pastoral care team.
Legend of a figure sometimes known as a goddess, sometimes considered a witch or a hag of winter. And if she wants winter to continue, she wants a sunny day to go out and gather firewood for the winter. So if it's sunny on her day, she's getting her firewood. We're going to have a lot more winter. If it's a cloudy day, she's not going to bother because spring is coming. And the energy of Imbolc is about endurance and about keeping strong. And that ties in with a lot of what we're going through here, because even for this area, we've had some really cold days, and I know people who, like Barbara from places like Maine, are used to them, but some of us aren't used to 16 degrees down here. And we've had to endure some of that, and certainly, yes. You guys know cold. Wow, yeah. If those, they didn't hear, they lived in Montana and Utah, so Charlie and Noah are very familiar with cold as well. And getting through, wondering what will happen in the spring, and everyone, especially with the disruptions of supply chains from the pandemic and war and other things, how will things come through? How will we eat? We're looking at the prices of eggs and gas going up again. We are still in this uncertain time. We would love the spring, and if you see the image of the candles, and green and white are the colors of Imbolc. And it's known as Candlemas in the Christian calendar. The Catholics, as they did with many pagan holidays, turned it into Candlemas, a festival of the Virgin. So the focus is on the candlelight and staying strong. And this also ties in with our theme of reproductive justice. And reproductive justice is not just about choice, but the whole range of rights. It's intersectional with tying in our personal autonomy, anti-racism, anti-sexism, economic justice, so that people can make choices in their lives which aren't necessarily dictated just by economics. So we know there are many, many disparities leading to the tragedy that Margaret talked about during Joys and Sorrows. And sometimes the best we can do is try to stay strong and bring ourselves into this space of light. So I encourage you to spend some time lighting candles, thinking about things that make you feel strong. So what are some of the things that you do that make you feel strong? Yes. You mean different styles of poetry and things? Yeah, so for those who couldn't hear, writing poetry, different types of poetry, so maybe like you try like haiku, or sometimes you rhyme and sometimes you don't rhyme, and finding ways of challenging yourself, because sometimes we want comfort. Sometimes challenging ourselves can help us to get a sense of strength. Anyone? Do you have anything you wanted to say? All right, well, we are part of our job here, bringing this community together to keep ourselves offering comfort, offering strength, because we have a lot of challenges ahead, and that's part of what the rest of our service is about. But now we'll sing you guys out to your classes so you can continue your faith formation. To invite you now, I'm hoping that those of you felt some relaxation in the dance this morning, a little more connection to the earth. I invite you now to breathe deeply into your center. Feet on the ground, try to relax your hands, make sure your spine is supported. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, close your eyes. Just be aware of relaxing your jaw. Many of us clench our jaws and create a lot of tension. Soften your shoulders, and you don't have to force the breath. Let it be gentle. And this month's theme is centering, and I know many of you are familiar with the chakra system, but in Celtic lore there is another system of centering known as the three cauldrons, and you can even think of the cauldron as similar to our chalice, as a vessel containing fire within three of the major centers of our body. And as you breathe, I'd like you to gently expand your belly with your breath and let it go. For the first cauldron is known as fire in the belly, the cauldron of warming. Your belly, your lower chakra areas, this is your vital force. And this cauldron is considered to be upright when you are born, because as long as you are alive, this is your cauldron of vital energy. Without this, you have nothing else. So take a few breaths. And I know many of us are in varying stages of health, but we are all here. We are all alive. And let's focus on that energy center, the exchange of breath that keeps the flow of oxygen through our bodies, the pulse of the blood from arteries and veins as the heart pulses the blood through our physical systems, circulating, energizing us. For we start with being here physically on this plane, and then gently moving up into our heart area. This is the cauldron of vocation. And it's often believed that when you're born, it's like this, so it's kind of tilted, it's half up, half down. And when you're a baby, you don't have a lot of skills, but as you learn to read, or you learn whatever skills your family and culture are teaching you for survival, which in certain cultures may be crafts and not literacy, and may be practical things. For those of us today, it may be computer knowledge and stuff that some of us are still struggling with. And learning is a lifelong task. And through learning, through the vocation, we find our skills. We find the things that we are good at. And sometimes we use terms randomly like able or disabled, rather than realize there's a whole range of skills. Each of us, everyone in here has a skill that other people don't have. Some skills are shared, some skills more common than others, but we all have sets of skills that are valuable, and our own combination of vocation is valuable. And I'm guessing that pretty much most of us in here would have that cauldron upright, so breathe a little bit into your heart area. Be aware of your emotions. Part of our skill set is managing our emotions, and we've dealt with some things. I remember Ruth and I were doing the service after Roe v. Wade was overturned, and we were calling that the service of the angry redheads, because we were processing a lot of our anger. The recent killing of Tyree has made a lot of us very sad. Being aware of those emotions and allowing them to affect us but not overwhelm us. And that is the purpose of this centering heart cauldron. The third is the fire in the head, the cauldron of knowledge. You might think of it as enlightenment. Some people put it in terms of the context of a spiritual awakening, which, if you are theistic, might be an encounter with the goddess or Jesus, or your perception of the divine. It might be nature. For a humanist, it might be the amazing wonder of science and the interplay of planets in this galaxy, and how this whole solar system has been arranged, and how this speck of star stuff and dirt turned into a viable planet that bears so many forms of life. And this is the one where we are consciously working on. Many of us have become more aware, especially in the past few years with the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter, of the privilege in our society. We are aware of a lot of history that has been hidden. A lot of women's history has not been told. A lot of the treatment of the Native Americans on this continent has not been told. Persecutions of the indigenous cultures of Europe are stories that have not been told. The stories of the enslavement of people from Africa. And these are all stories that help to turn our cauldron from this way to this way so that it can be upright. So let us now, as we go into our silence, visualize the fire in our belly, fire in our hearts, fire in our head, burning bright and illuminating ourselves. The chime will bring us in and out of silence, and then we will do the chant. I know this rose will open 3 times. The words will be on your screen. So now let us focus on tending our call. Yes. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
At this halfway point between the winter solstice and spring equinox, may we lean into hope and springtime. Recognizing that Mother Earth's womb is always warm, fertile, and thrumming with life, even as she may appear to be sleeping on the surface. As we watch the new green sprouts burst from darkness into light, let us remember that they don't do it alone. Their roots connect to one another. Their food and minerals are part of a vast system that connects everything to everything else. We are each of us a seedling in the womb of this church, and with each of us contributing the water, sunlight, and nutrients we have to spare, we will all flourish and grow and thrive together. Will the ushers please come forward to collect the offering? Thank you for your generosity.
A few weeks ago, I was approached by Jezibell, who said, "I know you were a nurse for a long time, and I know you are a supporter of reproductive justice. Would you have any stories about abortion from a nursing perspective, and would you be willing to speak?" Well, immediately I had a vision across my brain, a vision of Sophia Petrillo of the Golden Girls. Picture it. Well, this isn't television. It certainly isn't a comedy, but I do have a few stories I'm going to share. Picture it. Atlanta, Georgia, 1966, Georgia Baptist Hospital. I'm a 19-year-old student doing the labor and delivery portion of my OB rotation. I get to the unit that morning, and I'm told I will be monitoring a patient before she goes to the operating room. Remember, this was the day that, in the days that men were relegated to waiting rooms, and birthing mothers were sedated for delivery. This was not a birthing patient, however. She was a 19-year-old student from a local college. She was sedated. She had been admitted through the emergency room during the night with hemorrhage from an illegal abortion, backstreet abortion. Remember, abortions were illegal. Birth control pills hadn't even been out that long. The FDA approved contraception, oral contraception, in 1960, but Up until 1965, there were states across this country where it was still illegal to talk about or prescribe contraception. Now in '65, there was a Supreme Court decision, Griswold v. Connecticut, which made contraception, talking about contraception and prescribing them for married women, legal. As I stood over her bed and read her chart, I tried to imagine what she must have felt like when she found out she was pregnant. Shock, shame, fear, despair. But I also felt for her anger that there were no options. I don't know the outcome for this 19-year-old student. Did she live? How did she cope? Did she finish college? Did she go on to have a happy and fulfilling life? Did she have a career? Did she have family, children? That was an eye-opener for me, and that was my first step on my journey for reproductive justice. Picture it. Rochester, New York, 1973, Highland Hospital. In January of '73, there were two Supreme Court decisions that were read on the same day. Doe versus Bolton, which was a law to repeal or roll back the restrictive Georgia abortion law, and Roe v. Wade that we are much more familiar with. I had delivered my baby in March at Highland Hospital. Now I was answering a newspaper ad for a very part-time job, every other Friday for a couple of hours, every Saturday for 5 to 6 hours. No other details. The woman during the interview asked, "What are your feelings about abortion?" I told her of my experience in 1966 as a student. I told her my reaction, and I got the job. After the January ruling, 12 OBGYNs in Rochester, including my beloved Dr. Cegelski, had established an abortion clinic at Highland Hospital. They and the house staff served private and clinic patients. It was about as safe an environment as you could have. It was in the same building as the outpatient clinic. Women came in on Friday night for preparation and counseling. They came Saturday morning for the procedure. I want to tell you about two people that cemented my view of reproductive justice. The first was 12 years old. She comes in on Friday night with her mother, braces, pigtails. She looks so much like the child across the street who used to come and sit with my daughter while I went to the grocery store. It just broke my heart. She was too young to even understand some of the information we were trying to tell her. Her mother would not let us discuss contraception at all because it was against her religion. I don't know the outcome for this child, how she coped, how her life turned out. Did she go on to have children? Did she go on to have a happy, successful life, college, career? I don't know. The second was a 40-something-year-old woman with a 26-year-old disabled son who required total care. Her husband was alcoholic and abusive. Remember, marital rape was legal until 1984 in New York. I remember her tears as she said, "Who will take care of my son if I have another baby?" Unplanned, unexpected, unwanted pregnancies are, of course, not the only reason people need to terminate pregnancies. Fetal anomalies, incompatible with life, danger to the life of the mother, whether physical or mental. Whatever the reason, it is never a decision that is undertaken lightly. Much thought and discussion go on between patient, family, if they are lucky enough to have supportive family, and healthcare providers. Picture it. Who knows when? All across the country, comprehensive sexual health education for everyone, everywhere, is the standard. Of course, I think the Unitarian Universalist Our Whole Lives, or OWL, curriculum would be ideal. There is full coverage of a range of contraceptives to suit each person and their circumstances, and they are readily available. Healthcare decisions are made by healthcare providers and patients in private. Healthcare procedures are available when appropriate and determined by the patient and the healthcare provider, and they are done in a safe environment. To that end, I support organizations who use their corporate power to advocate on a national and state level, like Planned Parenthood, League of Women Voters, the ACLU. I will march as long as my knees and hips allow. I'll send emails, make calls, write postcards, use social media, tell my stories, whatever I can do to let my voice be heard until every person has protected health care rights over their own bodies. That's the world I want. May it someday be so.
Jan said she wanted to go first because she didn't want to follow me, but I don't think I can follow that. Thank you, Jan. That was incredibly moving. Jezibell asked me to speak a bit as a historian today, but I really wanted to speak also as a person who was raised in a very conservative religious environment, in which abortion was always equated to murder, always. I'm a Gen Xer. I never knew this world that Jan shared with us. I never grew up in that world. I never knew the world without Roe. It was always legal but controversial when I was a young person. Sorry, I'm still crying a bit from Jan and I can't quite read my text, so bear with me. People in my church prayed the rosary outside Planned Parenthood. And no, I wasn't Roman Catholic, but rather in a splinter group from the Episcopal Church that considered itself Anglo-Catholic. That means we prayed the rosary, but we also venerated King Charles I as a martyr. Very weird. And there were showings of the silent scream at my church to the youth groups. That sort of sums it up. Between that and my Roman Catholic high school education, I had little reason to doubt what I was told. Abortion was a grave sin. It had always been considered a grave sin, and it was acceptable only to save another life. Now, my church was fine with birth control in the context of marriage, but not abortion. I was presented with this as an unchanging, eternal teaching of the church. When I went to college, I began to hear stories of other women's abortions, the kind of stories that young women tell behind closed doors to each other. And that softened my stance a bit. I was still pretty sure this was a terrible sin, but maybe other people needed this sometimes. Maybe the law didn't have to follow my church. That was a pretty big move for me at that time. I started to see nuance, and that's kind of what college is supposed to do, right? But to be quite honest, it wasn't until I went to graduate school for history that I was really shaken up. And it was not necessarily by the kind of stories Jan has told or the sort of movement that we sometimes hear. It was in a seminar on the medieval church. Now that doesn't sound like Radical Feminism 101, does it? My professor, in fact, was kind of conservative by Canadian standards, but she introduced us to penitentials, a medieval document that I like to call the Sacrament of Penance for Dummies. These were manuals used by parish priests in medieval Europe to guide them on how to assign the appropriate penance for various sins when they were confessed. And they're a fascinating guide to the hierarchy of sin in the medieval church. What was really bad? What would get you sent to the Holy Land on a penance journey for 3 years versus what got you a few Hail Marys and a think about it. Abortion was not treated like murder. Not at all. Not even close. It was treated about the same as masturbation. It was treated as a way of subverting God's order, which was bad to the medieval Christian, but not like taking a human life. I was shocked. Imagine my surprise as I learned more about the doctrine of ensoulment and the widely held belief in pre-modern Europe that there was no soul in the fetus until the moment of quickening, whenever the pregnant person began to feel movement. That abortions before this time were legal in most European countries, and per church fathers like St. Augustine, not the equivalent of the destruction of a fully formed human being. I felt lied to. I was a pretty sincerely religious person, and this was shocking to me. My entire worldview was not only challenged, but in many ways that I thought were important, my worldview was disproven. Many of the facts I am relating to you now are much more widely known in the general world, but they were not when I was growing up in the heated abortion wars of the 1980s in my conservative religious community. Now, reproductive justice is not just about abortion. It's about a range of freedoms. The freedom to attempt to become pregnant, as well as the freedom to avoid pregnancy. It's about being able to choose family size. It's about the freedom to choose a sexual partner without undue limitation, the freedom to raise children according to one's conscience, without undue interference. And many of those freedoms get into very contested areas in our society. But I've also come to believe that the restriction of those freedoms is historically bound up and central to the worst parts of history. The history of restricting reproductive justice is a part of the worst parts of history. Patriarchy, racial supremacy, and economic exploitation. So much of American race-based slavery and the ideology of white supremacy that supported it was about controlling reproduction, forcing enslaved women to become pregnant and bear children, then ripping those children away from their mothers for profit. After emancipation, Jim Crow laws that ensured little access to birth control or medical attention to black women in the South forced them to continue to have many children, which led to many children working in the fields under the guise of sharecropping. The breakup of indigenous families and sending their children to residential schools where they would be tortured and robbed of their culture and language, that is a form of reproductive injustice. The criminalization of same-sex love, limitations on women's rights in defense of their supposed sexual purity, the sterilization of disabled people. We could go on with this litany of injustice, but it is striking how many of these are tied together by this theme of an anxious patriarchy, denying us justice. So I'm very glad we're having this service, and I'm very happy we're going to have the discussion afterwards, because reproductive justice is not an afterthought. It's deeply embedded in the concerns that you share about making a better world. And if you learn anything from my story, I hope it is that minds can be changed. Minds can be changed. I've gone from being a firmly anti-abortion young person to becoming the kind of college professor that Ron DeSantis warns you about. There is hope for change in our world. Blessed be and amen.
Again, I am so happy I invited these two women to speak today. I look forward to hearing more in the discussion. And I also want to remind anyone that if there are private concerns that you've had in your own life, that Reverend Nick and our pastoral care team, Margaret, Jan, Chris, and the others are also available if there's things that you do not want to share in a group. Our closing hymn continues this theme of Fighting the Patriarchy. It is an old classic, number 109, As We Come Marching, Marching, also known as Bread and Roses. For again, economic justice is a part of reproductive justice, and I invite you to rise in body and spirit as we continue to challenge the patriarchy. As we come marching, marching in the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens, 1,000 workshops gray, are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses, as we come marching, marching, we battle to for men, for they are in the struggle, and together we shall win. Our lives shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. As we come marching, marching, unnumbered women dead go crying through our singing their ancient song of bread. As all art and love and beauty, their strutting spirits new. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we come marching, marching, we bring the greater days, the rising of the women means the rising of the race. No more the drudge and idler, 10 toil while one reposes, but a sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, bread and roses. Please be seated. Our closing words are by Elizabeth M. Strong. Seek for the spirit of life that is within you, that you might know more fully its power and strength. Seek for the spirit of life that surrounds you, that you might know more fully its connection to you. Seek for the spirit of life that is within others, that you might enter more fully into the community that embraces us this day and every day. And those who wish may hold hands for spirit of life.